could pass for 20. Despite the unwavering support for more from the majority of evangelicals, there are some who are speaking out against what they call hypocrisy, like the evangelical Christian William Brewbaker. He's a law professor at the University of Alabama, and he says he's ashamed of Roy Moore and upset that so many people are determined to defend him against sexual assault allegations. I'm also joined by Pastor Mark Burns. He is in the majority, a defender of Roy Moore. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. So let me ask you first, why, Pastor, do you still defend someone who clearly is seeing the kind of allegations mount up against him? I mean, the kind of allegations and the number of allegations that caused our profession to yank a very prominent member of the media, that's Charlie Rose.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. In reference to Roy Moore, I think it's important that you have to understand Christians in America understand grace. Christians truly understand that the Word of God, it works even for people you dislike. It works even for people that you wouldn't vote for. The Word of God, either it works or it does not work. And most, if not all Christian, evangelical Christians understand that the power of grace is important. We cannot say Roy Moore, I personally cannot say Roy Moore is innocent, but I also cannot say that he is guilty. So what do I have as a Christian to use to decide whether or not we still should continue to support this person? Is he really a child molester? Is he really someone that is preying after young women? Or is this a character assassination?
All right.
The only way that we can really know is listening to the people that are the closest to him, those that do know him, those that have witnessed with him for over 40 years of service, public service within the great state of Alabama, and to hear their opinion of Roy Moore.
All right. Well, we know that they are supporting him. So let me turn to Mr. Brewbaker, who wrote a prominent op-ed in the newspapers decrying this hypocrisy. What do you say to the pastor who has just made those comments?
Well, I would say more generally that the Roy Moore situation is just a symptom of a deeper problem when it comes to evangelical involvement in politics generally. I think evangelical Christians, like other citizens, ought to be involved in the political realm. But I think it might be time for us to take a step back and observe sort of the way our involvement has taken shape and ask ourselves whether it really measures up to the things that we say that we believe. For example, I appreciated Pastor Burns' reference to grace, which, of course, is a central affirmation of Christianity. We're all sinners in need of grace, to be sure. But one of the implications of that is if we're all sinners and if we're all creatures who are limited and finite, then our politics doesn't always need to be cast as a battle between good and evil in some cosmic sense. We can learn from people who disagree with us. We can recognize our own need to be humble when we enter the public square. Again, this is not so much to speak of the situation with Judge Moore as it is just more generally to speak about some troublesome attitudes when it comes to politics in the evangelical church.
All right, let me play this soundbite that we have, part of an interview with one of the alleged victims, Lee Kaufman. She spoke out to accuse Moore of sexual assaulting her when she was 14, and she said, we do not have that, apparently, but she basically said that he seduced her. So let me ask you then, Pastor Burns, you know, you talk about grace. You've just heard what Mr. Brewbaker has said. I mean, I guess what people are trying to come to terms with is this politics triumphing over religion and over morality. Clearly, the Republican Party says that it needs Mr. Moore's vote when it comes to tax reform and the rest. And we've seen this sort of political defense play out, despite the very poignant words from those who claim that he seduced and abused them. What do you say to that, Pastor Burns?
Well, I can only speak from the perspective of a pastor and a student of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Bible makes it very clear that, as the professor said, we all have sinned and falling short of the glory of God. And when I stated earlier that morality isn't the only qualification for leadership, that doesn't mean that morality isn't important. It is extremely important. But I also understand that you have to have experience. You have to have faith. You have to have wisdom to go along with morality. If morality was the only qualification that we use to judge whether or not our leaders are qualified to lead, then none of us would qualify to lead, because we all have skeletons in our closet.
Okay. I understand that. We all have skeletons. Presumably, a lot of people who are outed or named and shamed or whatever the word is would apologize or would admit or would, you know, talk about inappropriate behavior, as many of those who have been outed already have been doing. But here's the thing. A plurality of Republicans, according to the latest Quinnipiac poll, 43% of Republicans say they would still consider voting for a candidate who has been accused of sexual harassment by multiple women, versus 41% of Republicans who would definitely not vote for the candidate. On the other hand, 81% of Democrats say they would not definitely vote for someone who was such accused like that. Professor Brewbaker, is that troubling to you as well, the fact that a plurality of Republicans would still vote?
Well, sure, it is troubling to me, and I think it's emblematic again of a deeper problem, and that is sort of where our ultimate hope and attachments lie. It's particularly troubling to me when folks want to highlight their belief in God in connection with political activities, and then are willing to hitch their wagons so firmly to a particular party or political candidate, and really unwilling to say to speak the truth when the truth needs to be spoken, whether it's Judge Moore or anybody else, right? When a leader starts defending the indefensible because it's so important that we have 52 instead of 51 Republican senators in the next Congress, then I think that's a problem. And of course, it's not just Republicans, it's Democrats, it's not just folks on the right, it can be folks on the left too. But this question of ultimate allegiances, I think, is really, really significant for the Christian believer.
I want to end by asking Pastor Burns whether he's worried that this state of affairs, defending somebody like Roy Moore, even under the current circumstances, ends up damaging your church and your faith. For instance, a fellow pastor, Russell Moore, has said, a church that worships Jesus stands up for vulnerable women and girls. A church that worships power sees them as expendable. And, you know, the evangelical who said, oh, my goodness, look at these people, these girls who say they're 14, they look like they're 20, as if to say that it's their fault. And you've seen the backlash. You've seen the pictures of young girls who've said, you know, this is me at 14, and they clearly look like school children. So are you concerned that this avalanche is damaging to your faith and your, you know, moral paradigm?
Well, Moore, the gentleman who made the comment about, some of the women, 14-year-old girls are getting what they deserve, that is not my opinion. I am a church, our church is a church that worships Jesus. And we're the same church that serves the same Jesus that looked to the woman who was accused of adultery and said, you without sin, cast the first stone. Woman, go sin no more. The same Jesus that said that grace, Paul said, grace is sufficient for thee. So grace works for those young girls. Grace works for Judge Moore. I think it's important that we have to examine all the facts. Christians understand that grace is a big part of our faith. The majority of the world is, in many cases, we live in a very immoral society in America.
Okay.
And so it is natural for people who don't understand grace, who don't understand forgiveness, who don't understand even accusations is not enough to just destroy a man's reputation when he has proven himself to be an upright man for the last 40 years.
Accusations, of course not. If it was proved to your satisfaction, would you apologize and condemn him?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't think he would be fit to serve, but I also understand that grace still forgives.
All right.
Even if he was guilty, grace still covers his sin, just like mine and yours.
Pastor, Professor, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this vital debate. And still to come,